I have the boys on a 50-50 schedule. I have the girls on an expanded order schedule. Uh, Going through divorce with kids was the single hardest thing that I've ever dealt with in my life, and I've had some doozies.
Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. Our guest today is going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, Dan, and appreciate all the listeners out there. My name's Robert Boudwin. I am a single dad of two sets of twins because God blessed me. God blessed me with two sets of twins from two different marriages. You know, Dan's already pregnant just from being on this podcast with me even though he's male and through the computer screen.
I was feeling something.
He's now pregnant. I like to joke, but it was IVF, as many people would guess. I'm not some magic shot. Being a dad's the best part of my life. Always wanted to be a dad. I like to joke a lot. I was an NBA mascot for the Houston Rockets for 21 years. Originally grew up in the Philadelphia area, went to the University of Delaware, was the mascot there, was the mascot in high school. I like to joke a lot that I have been lucky making love, but not lucky in love, because I am twice divorced. My girls are 8-year-old fraternal twin girls, Brooklyn and Bailey, and my boys are identical twin that are 16, Jack and Luke. They are the center of my life. I have the boys on a 50-50 schedule. I have the girls on an expanded order schedule. Going through divorce with kids was the single hardest thing that I've ever dealt with in my life, and I've had some doozies, including a father with a double lung transplant 13 years ago that's still with us, a very great career, but a very tough career. It was very hard career, not like most people would think, because of sweat, or hard not to talk, or all of those simple things. Just dealing with management and performing, trying to perform, at least I hope I did, at a high level, and being one's own advocate, one's own agent was tough, and went through a lot of trials and tribulations with that career. It was an amazing career, but going through divorce with kids was very tough. And I know that there's a lot of dads out there, most dads, love their kids more than they love themselves, and I've just learned so much. My perspective I've had is the system in our country, as a general rule, is antiquated and outdated. It favors women unjustly and unfairly, dating back to practices and norms from the 1950s or whenever, when a lot of women didn't work and were significantly disadvantaged. I still think they are, but not to the degree they used to be. And dads kind of, in a lot of cases, get the shaft. And we have to come out of pocket a lot of money to prove that we are equal parents. And it seems unfair. My first divorce, it was not like that at all. It was not contentious. We did 50-50. My ex-wife and I, the mother of my daughters, is one of my best friends. I consult her on all matters, not just about the kids, my career, my life, my love life, everything. Her husband, my boy's stepdad, is a great guy. I give him a present every Father's Day, and a card thanking him for being a good father to my sons for the half of the time they have him.
It's awesome.
And, the second situation, unfortunately, was not like that.
But you literally have both perspectives of this. One going good and one not so going good. And it's like, it's amazing to see when you can get along with your ex and it's all amicable. It's amazing. The difference that it does for the children, the difference that it does for you and everyone around is like, it's amazing. That's awesome.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't think I've broken it down. When we're so close to something, it's like getting your face close to the page on the book. You can't read the words.
Yeah.
But, to hear you say that, you're right. It is an interesting perspective in life and on this. And yeah, the second situation has been debilitating at times for me. Uh, dare I say, life threatening.
Hey everyone, quick pause here. If you're digging the Daddy Issues podcast and want to dive deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You get exclusive content, behind the scenes stories, and even some live Q&A sessions. Your support helps keep the podcast running. Head on over to patreon.com/daddyissuesthetruth to join the family. Thanks for listening and supporting the show.
Not in a suicidal way, but in a just unhealthy way, gaining weight, being depressed, losing momentum in my career at times, just being dismayed, nightmares, night terrors, all kinds of stuff. I hope that I've turned the corner with that, and I've just strategically tried to do things in my mind and the way I deal with that situation. Things like not worrying about who's right and not trying to be right, and just strategically trying to keep the fire kindling or smoldering and not raging.
Yeah.
And just, obviously, I think we all want what's best for our kids, but that's kind of lip service at some point unless we do things to keep the peace. And that has become more paramount. Having conviction has been less paramount in my life, and just keeping the peace for the kids' sake and for my own sake has become important. At times when I think about it, I feel like I've succumbed and given into the battle and settled. And at other times, I feel like I've matriculated to a point where I can see the shades of gray better, and things aren't so black and white, and, I'm making more wise decisions. Um, yeah, I wrote a book that I've been wanting to do for about 15 years now, and I released it in December. Um, I talk about being a single parent quite a bit in it. I have a website called radicaldadding.com that was born during the pandemic. A friend suggested to me, "Hey, you do all these crazy things with your kids." And I was like, "I don't think they're that crazy." And he's like, "Well, I don't know too many other dads that take their kids to the movies and dress up as the characters in the movie every single time they go." And I was like, yeah, that's just fun, man. I guess maybe it's the mascot part of my life or whatever, but we've done that over 130 times now.
What a great experience for them, though. You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome.
Man, Dan, I hope so. Sometimes it's like you're like, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for them? And then hopefully the answer is both.
Yeah.
And they look back, and like this. It's like Halloween 25 times a year.
Yeah.
And I used to get to the theater 25 minutes after the scheduled start time of the movie, right as Directed By was rolling across the credits. And then I realized, oh man, we got to get there 25 minutes before previews are even starting, because everybody thinks we're hired talent in the movie theater lobby and they want pictures and stuff. And it's like, awesome, but like, I got to get popcorn and a slushie to get in this movie. So, it's super fun. I think one of the things that I think about sometimes, because it's so easy when we're in these bubbles alone, especially half the week we don't have our kids, it can feel isolating. And I live in the suburbs now, and I don't have the job I used to. I'm a realtor these days and an author, and that can be a little isolating.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the times I catch myself like, what are all the good things that came out of this?
Yeah.
And there's so many good things. I value just on a top level, and I hate to generalize and seem like an absolutist, but what are the good things? I value experiences now more than I do stuff. And I can say that 100%. I used to care about my house, and I used to care about having a swimming pool and an H2 as the car and a Rolex on my hand. I don't have any of that crap anymore, and I could care less. I don't miss it, and I can say that 100%. When I downsize houses to fight a custody battle, frankly, I was so worried about my identity being wrapped up in my house, and that it was the culmination of all my work and my career and my life's work in a representation of a tangible thing. And it was, I wanted it to look substantial, and it did. And, and that fear was so much more worse, the fear itself, than the actual thing. like I'm in a one story that's 2,400 square feet now, and I'm more happy than I ever have been in any home that I've been in. And it's
Yep.
so weird. It's like the second I did it, the week later, I was like, I don't miss crap at that old house. Yeah, great. I had a movie room that I used twice a year.
Such
I
a
had a
headache.
game room that
Yeah.
I used every other year. It's just like these things, it's all those cliches about, you know, own your stuff. Don't let your stuff own you. Um, so that was good. Valuing the experiences. The things that I do with my kids now are very much more intentional and planned out, and not just haphazard or by accident. I the next weekend I have all four kids together is coming up in 2 weeks. It's usually every other week, but this year's spring break, and it's my daughter's mother's year. But like I already know what's going to happen. We're going to go see Snow White, and we're all dressing up, and I'm wearing a Snow White costume. It's going to be my first, female costume. But my sons have little Seven Dwarf shirts. They're 16 now. They're too cool to do the costumes. They still do the shirts. But my daughters and I are going to be Snow White, and that night we're all going to Fogo de Chao because, man, that's a single dad hack right there. Go to Fogo de Chao. If your kids are 6, they're free. If your
Oh
kids
wow.
are 12, they're half off. So I roll in there, and the last waiter, we get in there, and my kids are 8 and 16 now. Waiter comes right up to the table. He's like, so they're 6 and they're 12, right? And I was like, bingo! And I just said, and I tip on the correct total.
Yep.
So we got Fogo de Chao coming up, where I hope I roll the dice and get lucky again. The next day, we're going to this dig world where we get to use backhoes and real big bulldozers and real stuff. And I look forward to it. It's like
Yeah.
exciting. And I don't know that I was like that as much. I was more focused on work, work, work. It's
Mhm.
my job as the dad to earn money, to be the hunter and the gatherer, and and to create the money and the wealth for the experiences. And the experiences were very much secondary.
Yeah, and I mean, I see how that works when you are with a significant other, where she's taking care of the kids and you're off working and providing for the family. I totally get that. But once you guys split up, then you got to play both roles. So it's like,
You're right.
how do I mean, I think that's awesome that you also get both of your children, or all four of your kids, at the same time, so you can go do things with them. How are they, do you see like a difference, from the set of girls and the set of boys, how you've dealt with like their moms? Like, is there like, are the girls a little bit, better or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you I'm a social science book nerd and junkie, and most of the information we have about nature versus nurture comes from twin studies. Um,
Right. Yep.
Unfortunately, it was twin studies created under nefarious terms back in the 60s. But I get to see this, the nature versus nurture with identical twins and then a second set of twins, and also look at it like, oh, these two are different than these two. The only common denominator is me, but my boy's mother was very introverted, very quiet, very even keeled, cool as a cucumber, can't ruffle her feathers kind of thing. When we were married for 11 years, we always looked at it as like, she was what grounded the relationship,
Yep.
and I was what brought excitement and fun to it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, my daughter's mother had more of a personality, the opposite of that, extreme extrovert and whatnot. And I see that in my daughters 100%. My boys are cooler than me, meaning level-headed, more level-headed than me.
Yep.
I never hear them raise their voice. I never hear them get super excited nor super upset. And my daughters are, my one daughter, they call her my twin. People like to make jokes. I have 2 sets of twins. They're like, no, no, no. You and Bailey are twins because she is super fiery, super excitable, super gregarious, super like a ham. So and dealing with their mothers, I try to keep that out of their peripheral.
Mhm.
The boys see it more now because they're 16. The girls, I just try not to talk about those differences, but I see it genetically uh, and with the nature and the nurture. And I'm like, oh, yeah, these girls, their disposition from the word go was different than my son's. They're a product of two parents that are both extroverts. And I'm boiling it down to some of these simple concepts, but and the boys weren't. They were, their mom's an extreme introvert, I'm an extreme extrovert, and they kind of, in my mind, fall left to center, closer to their mom's personality. So yeah, I'm always seeing differences in them, in the differences between the two sets. They're 7.5 years difference. And a lot of people think, oh, it must be so hard to be a single dad of two sets of twins. It hasn't been, to be honest. They help me more than I help them.
Yeah.
And the boys are 7.5 years older. So maybe it'd be different if they were 2 years difference. But my sons were doing chores, mopping floors by the time they were 6 years old, feeding their sisters when they were born, bottles and stuff. So they've been an amazing, not parents to their sisters, but help. They always call themselves gophers. We're not changing diapers. We're gophers. We'll go get the wipes. We'll go get the diapers. We'll go get the Aquaphor. But that's where it ends. Okay.
But they all have like a great relationship, all the kids, because I know it can be tough when there's split households.
No, they have a great relationship.
That's awesome.
They can't. They come home today. I have the girls every Wednesday night, and the boys come home Wednesday. I have them Wednesday to Friday, and then the boys' mother and I rotate every other weekend, so it's 50-50. But I have them every Wednesday night, and the second we get home, the boys' mother drives them here to help save me time. I get home from in town with the girls, and they spend an hour and a half playing solid.
Yeah.
They can't wait to see each other. They invent all these games, ghosty and tag, blindfolded. I don't know. So sometimes I try to get out of the way, and sometimes I'm a little jealous. Like, well, I only have an hour and a half here too before we go to Taekwondo every Wednesday night. All four kids have been in martial arts since 4 years old. It's one of the things I'm proud about, all of them. The boys got their black belts right before their 10th birthday. The girls will be getting their black belts in December. And it's something I do with them religiously. I believe it creates discipline.
I was just about to say that.
Accomplishment, self-esteem, self-defense, all these things. But that's our Wednesday tonight. So it's like a fever pitch. Okay, who gets to play? What do we get to do? There's no chores on Wednesday. It's just, but they get along famously. And the girls look up to their big brothers. They are interested in the things they're interested in.
Yeah.
Whatever video games or movies or things like that. And the boys, you would think 16-year-old boys have a lot of other interests other than playing with 8-year-old girls, and they don't. They do, but the second their sisters are around, they're in. And,
that's awesome.
It's interesting in the car when we drive places, listening to them talk about stuff and just being a fly on the wall and how they debate things in their minds. So,
yeah.
No, they get along great. There is no discord between the two families because of that.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
How about you? How's it like for your kids?
So for me, I mean, it was rough. My oldest was 7 when me and their mom split, and my youngest was like 5, and my youngest was too young to really understand what was going on. But my oldest, there was a lot of alienation. It was very rough. And what sucks is like, me and my youngest have a great relationship. Everything, I can cuddle her. It's all good. Me and my oldest, if I go up to hug her, she'll shake me off and like doesn't let me do anything. And I'm like, it's sad for me. It sucks because I want to be that dad. I love my children so much, but it's like, it sucks for her. She's missing out on a great childhood. I mean, she has, we give her, we do so many fun things, so much stuff. Like you were saying, we do a lot of experiences with them and not like just buy, random shit. But, she never wants to go. She never wants to do any of it. And it's because, she used to get in trouble going back to her mom in the very beginning, being like, oh, I had fun at dad's house. And then, she'd get in trouble for it. So she's now I don't know. I'm having someone on to talk about alienation and all of that. Some woman who went through it, but it's just sad. It's sad, but I feel bad for her, because she's missing out. And I don't know what to do, besides love her and keep trying. It's like, but it's been years, And it's just
I
the
don't think
same
there's
thing.
any easy answer there, and anybody
Right.
that tells you is full of shit.
Yeah.
Things are so situational, and I get it. It sounds like she was shamed for expressing having a good time, which is reprehensible. And she probably has some quote unquote abandonment issues because she doesn't understand that mom boxed you out.
This is the perfect segue into talking about BetterHelp. We often think we need to tough it out, but seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Therapy offers a safe space to navigate life's challenges, improve relationships, and enhance emotional well being. Platforms like BetterHelp make it easier than ever to connect with licensed professionals online, offering flexibility and accessibility. Remember, taking care of your mental health is as crucial as physical health. Don't hesitate to reach out and invest in yourself. Guys, this is so important to reach out, talk to somebody, and better your life. Guys, you'll receive 10% off for the first month of therapy if you use this code betterhelp.com/daddyissuespodcast.
I'm caught in the middle as the adult parent. Like, I don't want to put her in the middle and explain these concepts to her from my one side too much, but at the same time, you don't want her to think I dipped out on you. I didn't dip out on you.
Right.
And I get it between your oldest and your youngest, because the youngest is too young to remember.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm so grateful for, and it wasn't by design, but most of this stuff went down. My girls are 8. Most of it went down when they were 3 and when they were 2.
Yep.
They don't remember any of it. And I'm grateful for that. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
explain anything about abandonment because they don't remember and they don't feel that way.
Right.
If my kids were a little bit older, yeah, I'd be in a pickle. It would be like I'd be in that pickle you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sucks. It's like we have 50-50 now, but, going through all of that court and, 6 years, and, they would bring, it was like 30-70, and they would bring suitcases to my house every time. I'm like, they had full rooms, toys, clothes, but they would never wear any of my stuff. And it got to the point, like, for Christmas, like, I could go up to my daughter's room right now and there's still all of her unopened, or she'll open the present but then won't actually unbox it. And it's just like, it's just so sad, and that it's still happening. But we're gonna obviously just keep going, keep loving her, and keep doing it. So
have you gone into a therapist at all? With
they did have therapy for a little bit. My oldest is just so, I mean, she was told to film us. She, her mother cut a teddy bear open, put a phone in the back of it. Like, she is so mentally scarred, I think, from all of this. It's going to take her a lot to get over it, or to realize, because I haven't sat her down and told her any of this, or told her, I've never talked bad about their mom in front of them. Like, I've never done any of that. And I don't know I would want to sit her down and tell her, like, hey, this is what's really going on. But I don't know what would help.
Real quick.
Say it again.
Can I put you on the hot seat?
Oh, absolutely.
Is this podcast partly a video diary for them at some point when they become adults, so that they see how much you cared and the intricacies for when they're adults, and so they can understand it?
It actually isn't. It started off being that way. It started off me telling my story, and then I took it down. So I haven't really told my story on here, or because I took it down years ago. But no, now it's just, I was so fired up and so angry with the system, how it was treating dads. And I'm a videographer, so it's like, this was my way to help other dads. When I found, like, a Facebook group, and I was like, there are so many dads going through this. I was going through my situation.
We don't really talk about
right.
it. I'm talking more vulnerably and honestly right now on this podcast than I've ever spoken about it.
But it helps.
It does help.
Yeah.
Part of me's only doing it because I know this is a niche viewership.
Right.
And it's not blasted out to the world. And when I first got involved in some of these Facebook groups, that's exactly what it was, because I wanted to hide this. And I felt ashamed of this. And I felt worried about all the assumptions people would make, like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
The go-tos are dad's off. Sorry, I'm just going to use words like I feel like. This isn't network TV. Dad's off whoring. or
Yeah.
dad's off drinking, or dad has rage problems, or whatever. All these things that are just easy to try to label a man with
Yeah.
that are not true at all. Couldn't be further from the truth when I have my kids.
Yeah.
I
Right.
like women.
Yeah.
I like a beer. I like all those things. I played hockey and I boxed. I like fighting with men
Yeah.
occasionally. Not for sport anymore at this age, but I don't know. I'm a multifaceted person and complex. And when I have my kids, I'm a dad. I
Yeah.
don't do any of those things. But it's just, we're such easy targets. And using some of those groups was, yes, it was enlightening. Like, oh, there's a bunch of us out there that are going through this and, all of it. I talk a lot about some of those experiences in the book. I have a chapter about dating after divorce. I have a chapter about being a single parent. Um, I have a chapter about IVF. Um, I have a chapter about rebounding from trauma. So the book's like 51 chapters, and I'm not trying to do a commercial here.
Oh no, we'll promote that for sure.
It's been like, it's been cathartic for me. Part of it was writing this was like, I got to get this shit out of my head.
Yeah.
And it doesn't erase it from your head or completely let it go. But I was like, it did help. I'm going to put this down on paper, and then I'm going to close it and feel like, okay,
Hmm.
this is how I felt about it, and I cemented it in words. And some people are gonna, hopefully, it helps some people, or that makes them feel less alone. And then I'm gonna try to be done with it, at least on this active level of being angry and consumed with the system sucks, and uh, trying to move forward. It's I struggle, and I think a lot of people do, men and women. I struggle with the concepts of perseverance and grit and integrity and honesty and character all being kind of and buckle down, tough it out, lean in, and let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. The Elsa song. All of it. That concept about move on, let it go.
And it's tough. That shit's
Yeah,
tough to
it
let it
seems
go.
like you're being a fucking pussy if you
Right.
let it go,
Yeah.
and you're giving in, and you're and the serenity prayer and all that stuff. And I'm not super religious, but I find a lot of meaning in that. The wisdom to know the difference. Well, yeah, that's the whole ball game, man.
Hmm.
I don't know. When do you let something go? When do you lean into it? Um, it's tough. Uh, so the writing process was fun, just to and cathartic and helpful. And also self therapy. How do I really think about these things? And it's one thing to talk about them with friends or on this podcast, but it's quite another to put pen to paper in solace by yourself for hours on end in a day. Because when you're writing them out, you have time to catch up with your thoughts.
Yeah.
Your mouth can move a lot quicker, and there's another person talking, there's stimulus. But when it's just you writing, you're like, you get a little bit more introspective and ask yourself why, but then why this and why that, and you get a little bit closer to the truth. I don't think any of us ever find the full truth,
Hmm.
but you get closer to it. I don't know
Yeah.
if that sounded like new wave hoj,
No, that was no, that was
hogwash.
good.
Uh,
So are I know in the beginning you said you have an extension or expansion. You're still going through court with your ex?
no, no more court. It's expanded standard order. We haven't been in court now 2 years, and
Oh, nice. Okay.
just trying to keep the peace.
Yeah.
I'm not a super fan of everything that has happened on the other end, but I've gotten better at it is what it is kind of thing and make the best of it. Um, I'm not so saccharine as to say lemons in the lemonade, but it is, focus on what I can control. I've gotten a little bit clearer in my mind of what I can control and what I can't. And I don't think it's control, it's influence. Um, and I don't think that's a set in stone thing, right? That also fluxes on what
Hmm.
I can control based on circumstances out of my control. And when those change, then I can control a little bit more things. So, um, it's been more good, I'd say, the last 2 years, and less drama and less fires. My girl's mother used to not answer any of my calls, just would not want to speak to me on the phone, would only respond to text, and only in time. It wouldn't be right away.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. The phone gets answered. There are civil conversations that sometimes, uh, aren't just about the nuts and bolts and logistics of places and times and dates and soccer and basketball and whatever. They're about Brooklyn's like this, and isn't it cool? So that's been a very welcome change. Um, I guess they say forgive but never forget.
Right.
I
Right.
think I'm kind of close to that. I'm never going to forget what
Right.
it almost killed me. It derailed my life, my career, my housing situation, my ability to care for all four kids as well as I'd like. But that's your mom,
Yeah.
and they're 8. There's another 10 years until they're 18. I better figure out the best, most productive way and set aside my own, I don't want to say thirst for vengeance. That sounds
Well,
like
no,
an action.
but I mean, there's obviously still hurt and anger there, and it's like you got to put that aside to let your kids have the best upbringing they can have.
Yeah, and I don't want them I don't want them caught between mommy and daddy.
Right.
What's my goal?
Hmm.
My goal is to raise those kids as best as possible to be adjusted humans, ready to take on the challenges of the world, ready to love, ready to be loved, and it's not to win in their minds over their mother.
Right.
It's not. What their mother and I, the problems we had, and and I have very specific thoughts about their mother and potential influences she has on them. What I can control is the way I raise them here and the even keeled foundation here, and without placing judgment on what's happening on the other side. I think it's, I'm a pretty opinionated person, but it's time for me to shut the fuck up when I hear things that I don't like over there.
Yeah.
And just not weigh in. And silence speaks more than words in those cases. And let them fill in the blanks, but it's not to the degree of win or be considered a better person or a better parent or whatever. I don't know. Those things you said earlier about your kids not pulling the gifts out and playing with them, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
haven't
tough.
had that. That's heartbreaking to me. I get it when you explain the story and what's behind it, but man, kids just should not be put in that situation. They were, hiding phones.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so tough too because, it took 6 years to get to the point where I wanted to be at in the very beginning was 50-50 and let's just get along. Um, Shitload of money down the drain, our kids' mental health down the drain. And for what? You know what I mean? Like, what did anyone gain from it? And it's just, that's what I just don't get. It's frustrating. It's
I think the whole
confusing.
system's a fucking racket.
It is. Yeah.
What I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's situations out there where CPS and the family courts and all the safeguards that are in place provide a very valuable
Of course. Yeah.
service for certain kids. But I think that is the vast minority. And maybe you could accuse me of leading a sheltered life or being in a bubble or whatever. But I don't know, man. I just feel like all
It's
the stories I hear are a fucking racket where people
Yep.
are spending half of their life savings or all of their life savings. And
Exactly. You're destroying the family right there.
yeah, and I just feel like, and as a provider, as the breadwinner, as all of that, I just feel like you're just taking money out of the inheritance from the kid.
Right.
And you're just making it so that they can afford to go to a less prestigious school or college.
Hmm.
That's the way my mind thought through all of this financially. It wasn't like, oh, we don't get to go to Disney World as much, or I don't get to have these nice experiences for myself. It was, this is their inheritance. This is, I started saving for my kids' college education in a 529 account 6 years before the first set of twins were born. So they
Oh
were
wow.
born in 2009. I opened up a 529 account in 2003, a year and a half after I got married to their mother, because I wanted kids. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was going to be twins, and I wanted them to be able to go to an Ivy League school because the things I was facing in my career was there's a glass ceiling. We always talk about the glass ceiling for women. I felt there's a glass ceiling with education. And if you didn't go to Harvard or Yale or Princeton, but especially Harvard, you weren't going to get considered for certain jobs. You just weren't. And I wanted my children to be able to do that. And when all this started going down, I thankfully have not touched that 529 account, and it has grown so that if they could go to that, I could afford that. But everything else got eviscerated.
Right.
Retirement. The joke I make all the time, and I don't go into it with people, but they're like, "Oh, 2 sets of twins at the grocery store." I say, "Yeah, I'm going to be paying for this shit until 20 years after I'm dead." So I don't know. Time plus or tragedy plus time equals comedy. You gotta laugh at it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It's I just always saw this as such a racket that there's people getting super like who can afford this shit? People are
Right.
having to mortgage houses, sell houses, and why? Because mom and dad are battling it out, and then and not every divorce attorney is like this. I really swear by the one that I ultimately have. I had to kiss a few frogs, but I swear by the one that I ultimately have. But I think most of them are just pariahs. And, you know, I mentioned child therapy. There was a child therapist involved, and I have a little bit of an aversion to child therapy, only because of the way it was used against me. It was weaponized during the custody battle because the other side could afford endless things. There was somebody that got connected to it, and there was, expense that
Yeah.
didn't matter. And I felt like that was funded, and, it's supposed to be for the child's benefit. Okay, we're all people. And
Right.
if one side's paying the bills, we're not, it affects people, including therapists, no matter how much they say they're being unbiased and whatnot. But, I do think it's good. I think going through all of this therapy has helped me. And I would encourage any dads out there, just in practical advice without getting all philosophical and esoteric and verbose like I tend to do. I would say run, schedule your time, and seek therapy.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 secret sauces for overcoming trauma, and especially with this stuff. Um, Therapy was super good because I tended to demonize myself and beat myself up, and this must all be my fault. Talking to an unbiased third party professional that doesn't have a dog in my race, and he says, "No, you're not a monster because you threw a champagne glass against the wall once."
Right.
Did you throw it at her? No, of course not. I threw it in the opposite direction as an expression of anger. And he's like, relax, dude. If you think there's not people in I remember his
Right.
words, in every living room in America breaking stuff on a regular basis, you're wrong. And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, I'm 70 years old. I'm a therapist. I have clients that are sociopaths. You're not that. You're sitting here arguing with me about why you're a monster. That so helped me. It
Yeah.
so gave me the perspective I needed, because anytime a friend would tell me that, I'd be like, they're my friend. They're telling me whatever they
You want to
think
hear.
I need to
Yeah.
hear. So therapy, running, the endorphins, the sense of accomplishment. I never, ever went on a run where I didn't feel better after the run than I did before. Not one.
Yeah.
Even if it was a tough run, even if I didn't run that well, even if I didn't go as long as I wanted, I always felt better. It was a sense of accomplishment. I did something. And it was also a sense of control when the world seemed out of control. Nobody controlled whether I put on my running shoes and went out and did it. It also was a little bit of sadist masochist stuff. I got to punish myself in a way by pushing myself and my body. And it also focused my mind where I wasn't going off in 10 different directions. It was pretty focused and get in the zone. So running, therapy, and then scheduling my time. I wanted to see my planner filled up so that I had somewhere to be, even if it was go to the post office. And it was a checklist too. It kept me on point, kept me on task, almost like a military operation. Kept me going, as opposed to just amorphous, times of unscheduled time where it would be easy to fall into just laying in bed and
Right.
bemoaning my situation. So yeah.
Yeah. You kind of answered it. I was gonna ask you, how did you get yourself out of, being depressed, losing, almost everything and stuff like that. But I guess the question now is, what would the first steps be for someone who's going through something like that? Like, how did you get into therapy? Like, what would you suggest to somebody like to take the first step to actually do it?
First thing I would say is give yourself a break. In that, what I think that depression and trauma is a lot like insomnia, at least for me. When I can't fall asleep and when I know I have to be up at a certain time for a day, like last night, to be frank, that's why my eyes are kind of a little baggy. I had some trouble falling asleep last night, and I'm like, shit, I got to get to sleep. I've got a big day tomorrow. And then you get mad at yourself. You get mad at yourself for not being able to fall asleep. And I think a lot of people did that. At least I did with after trauma and depression. Like, get up, dust yourself off, move forward. In given time, give yourself a moment to grieve. Give yourself a moment to feel sad, to feel depressed, to feel unmotivated, and don't get mad at yourself. That only compounds it. It's like getting a wound and then sitting there and scratching it and making
Right.
it infected and worse. So give yourself that time. Yes, it's not a blank check. You don't get to be depressed for 2 years and go into a hole for 2 years. But, don't just be like, oh, I got to set goals here on day 3. And then seek a therapist out. And when you do, get the right one. And that's going to be a different answer for all of us. Again, I don't use this phrase a lot, but kissed a few frogs. And I could tell after one session. Sometimes it was point counterpoint. I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I came to somebody that, like, in my mind, a good therapist listens a lot, talks little, asks questions that are poignant questions, never tells you how you should feel, but kind of asks you the right questions. Uh, Somewhat active listeners, but not too active. Um, you know, um, for me, it was a man. I hate the gender stereotype because I'm sure there are great women therapists, but for my experience,
Right.
that's all we really have to lean on. I can think of outside of it, but my initial thoughts are it was easier for me to talk to a man. I felt less guarded. Um, Inversely, it's easier for me to answer to a woman in work because I feel less like
Right.
that. But with therapy, I felt like less judged. If it was a woman, it would be hard for me to be completely open and honest and vulnerable with some of these feelings, emotions, and, especially anything around sex. It was just easier to talk to a man about. So, I'd say give yourself a break, find a therapist. Don't settle on the first one if they don't feel right. It could be the first one, but don't think, it has to be the right therapist. Same gender was the answer for me. I
Yeah.
don't know that those are the right answers. I just know that that's what worked for me.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for sharing your story. That was awesome.
Yeah, you bet, man. And thanks for doing this. I think it's super valuable for people like you, for people like me, and a whole host of other people out there that you and I don't even know that sometimes don't want to participate. And I would encourage you to keep going. It's a tough thing you're in. I used to be a DJ in college, and that was very tough for me. Sitting in a room alone, not knowing if what I was doing was resonating with people, was funny, was I connecting, were they laughing or not. It was so much easier being a mascot because
Yeah.
it was instant gratification.
Yep.
18,000 people either laugh or there's crickets. And then it's the longest walk in the world from mid-court to back a stage. I used to tell my bosses, you don't need to manage me. 18,000 people micromanage me in the moment.
Yep.
My hat off to you for what you're doing
Thank you.
because I truly think you're doing it for other people and for other people that don't necessarily want to participate outwardly or be a guest or call in or even comment on stuff. Keep it up. There's a ton of people out there that need this stuff, for many reasons. They can't afford therapy, and this is their therapy. So
Yeah.
good work to you.
Me down. You can hold me down. You can hold me down. You